Hello and welcome. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to watch this video. I believe this is a cause that is very important, and it's something that I believe is a nationwide issue, and I'm hoping that together we can address it and change this problem. So let me introduce myself to you. My name is Robert Grigore of Grigore Counselling, and I've developed a fund called the Gregarious Fund with one singular mission in mind. The mission of the Gregarious Fund is to assist those who cannot financially afford to access mental health services with an opportunity to receive mental health care at the professional level. Okay, so the issue that we're facing in Canada is quite large. The number of people that are experiencing mental health concerns is very high, and the number of people that can afford mental health care at the professional level is very small. So according to the Center of Mental Health and the Center of Addiction and Mental Health, 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental health distress or concern, and by the age of 40, half of us in Canada will experience this distress. Now, I personally and professionally believe those numbers are very low. I think that the majority of us, if not all of us, actually will experience a mental health illness or distress at some point in our lives. And only a portion of us who can afford the rates of a professional counselor get access to these services. For those who are low income, who cannot access the services due to their financial means or financial situation, they are actually 3 times more likely to experience a mental health concern versus those who are in a higher income bracket that can actually afford the services. Makes sense, right? Now, unfortunately, if somebody is in a lower income bracket and they cannot afford access to these services, the only options that they have is to seek public or governmental assistance with this care. Now, there's just a few of us as registered clinical counselors or registered social workers that are doing counseling that are actually working in these public sectors. That would be with your health organizations. And unfortunately, the reality is that the wait list for those people, for those counselors, are very long. And if somebody's lucky enough to finally see a counselor when they're still dealing with their issues, they probably don't get much choice as to who they talk to. So if you have more money, you can afford access to the right kind of care that you need. And if you don't have the money and you're lucky enough to see somebody, you see whoever you can see. Now, what I would like to do with this Gregarious Fund is to begin to build a fund which has enough money available that therapists that are in the private sector can take on a pro bono client without affecting their financial bottom line. Now, most of us who get into this business do this work for the compassion that we have for others, not for the money. However, the reality of owning a private practice in Canada is that it is a business, and every business has a bottom line, and there's only so much expense that we can take without us losing money. So the average cost in British Columbia for a registered clinical counselor for 1 hour is $110 Canadian. Now, if you imagine coming in for weekly sessions, and then you times that by a year, so somebody that's coming in for the average registered clinical counselor's wage coming in weekly for 1 year cost $5,280 or so. So let's say $5,000. Now, that means that the cost for a private practice therapist to take on a pro bono client or a low income client that cannot afford the cost of counseling costs us $5,000 a pop. Now that is a significant amount of money. Imagine we take on 1 or 2 or 3 of these clients. That's $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. That's a lot of money off of our plates and off of our children's plates in order to give the help that we'd love to give, but we just can't afford it. So this is where the Gregarious Fund hopes to intersect. The Gregarious Fund would like to reach out to these therapists and ask them, hey, would you be interested, or do you have a spot available in your calendar where you could see somebody pro bono? And if the therapist says, yes, I do, but I can't afford it, then the Gregarious Fund would like to say, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to cover the cost of that spot for you. So the therapist is receiving the financial compensation that they need, and the client is receiving the professional level help that they need. And the only thing that the Gregarious Fund needs is the help of our compassionate donors. So if you've ever struggled with a mental health concern, you know yourself personally how debilitating it can be and how difficult your life can become when you're suffering with depression or anxiety or post-traumatic stress disorder or phobia or relationship issues or self-esteem issues, or there's lots of stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. If you yourself haven't experienced any of that kind of concern, then I guarantee that you know of a friend of yours that is struggling, or you have a colleague that you imagine suffering, or a family member. And the reality is that these individuals that I'm speaking about, the low-income individuals that can't afford access to these services, professional level counseling, could be really anybody. When I was working in the downtown east side in Vancouver as an outreach worker, and the downtown east side, by the way, is the poorest postal code in Canada, I discovered that the majority of my clients were not that much different than me. They had jobs, they had families, they had children, they had cars, they had all the things in the middle class that we consider as really benchmarks for our middle class success. They were just a paycheck or two away from everything falling apart, from losing their house, from having relationship issues, which ended up destroying the marriage or relationship, or losing touch with their children, developing mental health concerns or substance abuse concerns. I know that everybody that's watching this video can relate to this issue because it's something that we all face. So if you've ever received help and don't know how you can repay that help, I'd like to offer you this chance to pay it forward. Our first goal is $5,000 so that I can test this out in my practice first to perfect this model, and then our next goal is going to be $10,000 so that I can do the same for somebody else and another person as well, another counselor as well. And we're going to keep raising this just to make sure how many times we can perfect this and repeat this model. Once we reach a certain number of times within British Columbia, say 20 times, 25 times, I'm going to increase this to nationwide. I want this to be something that happens throughout Canada. And before too long, we're going to register for a charitable organization, and it's going to be even easier to give. And I want to just ask you to reach into your heart and to give for these individuals that really need the help. So thank you again for whatever you can contribute to this mission. We'd love also a share on social media so that we can get the word out to as many people as possible. Again, thank you so much for taking a few moments to view this video and to help us with this important cause. I hope that your day is blessed. Cheers for now.